Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is the channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on, and talk about some books. It's officially the beginning of April, which means it is time for my April reset. If you've never been here before, this is essentially where I run through all of the books that I read in March and do a quick one-sentence review of all of them, and then I go and talk about all the books that I'm planning to read in April. April is an especially exciting month for me because we've got two readathons that I'm super excited to be a part of. The first is Realmathon, hosted by Cassidy over at Covers with Cass. The reason why I'm super excited for this one is because it is the first ever readathon that I ever took part in the first iteration of it last year. So of course I'm super excited to be taking part in the second iteration of it this year. It is a month-long readathon that goes throughout the month of April, and it's competitive as well. So you can pick one of 4 realms that you are going to be a part of and attack other realms and gain points for your realm. It's super fun. Join Team Cyrus because that's what I'm on, and it's going to be a lovely time. The second readathon, of course, is Magical Readathon hosted by G over at Book Roast. If you've been around on my channel for a little bit, then you know that I have been doing a big Magical Readathon catch-up moment in order to get to this moment, which is the moment that I can finally take part in real time with Magical Readathon. So I'm so excited to be finally taking part in real time this month. Again, it's a month-long readathon. It's not competitive or anything. It's all about building your own character, building your own world. And for this round, we are taking part in the second spring equinox. So it's all about studies and reading books that have prompts that get you the course that you need in order to sort of level up your character in the field that you're interested in. So both of those readathons are happening, so they have controlled my TBR. But before we jump into all of that, let's get all the books that I read in March, grab them off the TBR cart, stack them up, and run through what they are, what I thought of them, and what I rated them. First up, I read Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. My one-sentence review is the story of a band that defined an era and what that meant for their own physical and mental health, told through a series of interviews with the core members that exposed their biases and misremembering, all sprinkled with that extra special Taylor Jenkins Reid. You'll never guess who the narrator is. Surprise. I gave this book 5 stars. Then we had A Fatal Crossing by Tom Hindle. My one-sentence review is, whilst the idea felt tense and exciting, the execution felt too drawn out and entirely pointless once the plot twist at the end revealed the entire investigation was worthless. 2 stars. Then I read Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and my one-sentence review is, as a family's secrets are exposed and lies converge in this one infamous party, all the different POVs create this feeling of chaos and disorder that is so atmospheric and expertly composed. I gave this book 4.5 stars. Then I read The Deal by Elle Kennedy, and my one-sentence review is a fun sports romance that built up its core cast well, dealt with conflict maturely, gave me time with a couple in a relationship so that I could actually get invested, but ultimately felt very awkwardly composed in its writing style. I gave this book 3.5 stars. Then I read Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, and my one-sentence review is a fantasy romance very reminiscent of its time in that everyone loves the main character for reasons I can't understand, but ultimately it was a well-paced read because it set the scene and the stakes so well at the beginning. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, and my very run-on sentence, one-sentence review is a non-conventional chronology and multi-POV story that I am absolutely floored by because of how well the characters were built and fleshed out, the way the author was able to make me fall in love with certain characters without me even realizing it, and how the author seamlessly merged a whodunit with a mother learning the impact her prioritizing work had on her relationship with her son. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Diddley Squat Till the Cows Come Home by Jeremy Clarkson, and my one sentence review is Jeremy Clarkson retains his satirical and sarcastic writing style whilst also exposing the absolute ridiculousness of the red tape in the farming industry and his views of geopolitics, the economy, and the environment in an accessible way that even absolute beginners like myself could understand. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, and my one sentence review is, whilst I understand why I loved this book back in the day because the humor was snarky and of its time, and the romance was a lovely angsty slow burn, this time I couldn't get past the lack of logic in children dealing with such complex battle strategy, and the fact that characters I used to love just kind of acted like dicks. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare, and my one sentence review is, I think only one word is needed to explain why I really couldn't enjoy this book. Incest. And I gave it 2.5 stars. Then I read City of Glass by Cassandra Clare, and my one sentence review is, uncomfortably, the incest continued and got way worse, which made the romance uncomfortable to read, and I just couldn't understand how a group of 16 to 18-year-old children were able to defeat a big bad that none of the adults seemed to know how to deal with. I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie, and as for my one sentence review, I said, a murder mystery that was genuinely an experience to read because it had me second guessing, backtracking, and doing everything I could to solve it, whilst also making me laugh out loud at Poirot's crazy genius and Hastings' village idiot vibes. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read The Maid by Nita Prose, and my one sentence review is, whilst I appreciate what this story was trying to do in terms of neurodivergent representation and turning a murder mystery on its head, the characters were all just unlikable and entirely illogical, and the whole story went on way longer than it should have, delving into a court case that I just couldn't care less about. I gave this book 1.5 stars. Then I read It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover, and my one sentence review was the book that everyone thinks shouldn't exist, but I totally disagree with because it allows the reader to understand the consequences, both good and bad, of the decisions made at the end of It Ends With Us, whilst providing hope that you can find happiness and love again after experiencing such heartbreaking trauma in a previous relationship. I gave this book 5 stars. Then I read Twisted Lies by Anna Huang, and my one sentence review is a book where I was so unsure for so much of the read because it seemed like it was turning into a romance between the stalker and the stalkee, and I was ultimately kind of proven right. I gave this book 2 stars. Then I read Saga Volume 3 by Brian K. Vaughan, and as for my one sentence review, I wrote, I know I said I wouldn't be continuing, but I couldn't resist, and I'm so glad I did because this volume focused on breaking barriers and allowing moments of found family and happiness that made me love the characters more than I had before the time jump at the start of this book. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Saga Volume 4 by the same author, and my one sentence review is, the first heartbreak was dealt and my intrigue officially skyrocketed, as I was desperate to find out how this family would make their way back to each other through the geographical, emotional, and mental distance that was created. I gave this book 3.5 stars. Then I read Saga Volume 5, and my one sentence review is a much more tense read as tentative alliances were formed and a family on the edge struggled to make their way back to each other, with cinnamon bun side characters and way more graphic illustrations this time than in previous editions of the series. I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read Saga Volume 6, and my one sentence review is unlikely alliances became even stronger, my favorite characters finally got some peace, and I finally noticed that this whole series is social commentary on topics such as racism, gender identity, sexual identity, substance abuse, unconventional families, and so much more. I gave this one 3.5 stars. Then I read Saga Volume 7, and my one sentence review is, this was the moment I knew that this series would break my heart, because as each peaceful volume happens, the very next one breaks your heart, and the Meerkat family in this volume definitely did that for me. I gave this one 4 stars. Then I changed things up and I read The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss, and my one sentence review is, whilst I was absolutely in love with how the story was written and how it would break the fourth wall, it did start to lag on, and it kind of didn't characterize the famous characters of Victorian literature in a way that felt authentic to how they were originally written. I gave this book 3.5 stars. Then I went back to Saga with Volume 8, and my one sentence review is a very politically charged volume, especially around the pro-life versus pro-choice argument, which made me really begin to love that this series is making very important discussions so accessible. I gave this one 3.5 stars. And then I rounded it out with Saga Volume 9 because my library doesn't have the 10th volume yet, and my one sentence review of this is heartbreak and despair. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read The Mistake by Elle Kennedy because I was in desperate need of some picking up after the heartbreak that I'd endured with Saga, and my 1-sentence review was a second chance romance where the guy fell first and spent so much of the story making grand gestures that made me absolutely swoon for a female main character who was sure enough in what she wanted that she wouldn't take any shit and was going to make him work for it. 4.5 stars. Then I read The Score by Elle Kennedy because I was officially addicted, and my 1-sentence review is another guy falls first romance, but this time sprinkle in some friends with benefits and a main male character that isn't as obsessed with hockey as the previous 2 books, meaning the book could instead focus on him dealing with real life trauma and the heartbreak and how his relationship recovers from the impact of that. I gave this 4.5 stars. And then I rounded it out with The Goal by Elle Kennedy, my last book of the month, and the 1-sentence review is a surprise pregnancy romance that spent a little too much time in the build-up and with a main male character that I think needed a bit more of a backbone, but I still loved the main female character and how she was completely set in her priorities and her career ambitions. I gave this one 3.5 stars. So officially in March, I read 25 books, which is nuts to me. That is absolutely insane. I made such a dent in my goal for the year to read 150. I was just amazed by how many books I managed to get through, but I did have 2 DNFs, and the first one was How Much of These Hills Is Gold by C. Pam Zhang. The second book that I DNF'd was Heart of the Sun Warrior by Su Lin Tan, which is the second book in the Daughter of the Moon Goddess series. I think it's the Celestial Kingdom series is what it's officially called. So let's go put all these books back on my shelves and get out all the books that I'm going to be reading in April. So my official TBR for April, based on the TBR video that I put out a couple days ago, is going to be Good Girl Complex by Elle Kennedy, Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, Gallant by V.E. Schwab, Only a Monster by Vanessa Len, and Not a Happy Family by Shari Lapina. But the other books that I want to get around to are Paper Girls, the complete volume, so this is all of them, it's all compiled in this one book, by Brian K. Vaughan, Cliff Chang, Matt Wilson, and Jared K. Fletcher. The Book Eaters by Sun Yi Dean, Innocent Traitor by Alison Weir, Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, and for a complete kind of curveball, I guess, because someone at work gave me this one to read, I kind of want to read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, but I literally know nothing about it, and I don't know what to expect because someone at work was like, hey, you might like this, and gave it to me, but I don't think they know the sort of things that I like to read because they've never seen any of my videos or anything like that. They just know that I read a lot and was like, here's a book, you might like it. So this is the last book that I'm kind of hoping to get to, but don't know. So let's go put all of these back on my TBR cart and we will round out this video. So that is the end of this video. That is all the books that I read in March, my thoughts on them and my rating of them, as well as all the books that I'm planning to read throughout the 2 readathons that I am taking part in April. So it's going to be a super exciting month ahead, very busy definitely. I know that in previous readathon months I've ended up doing like my best month in terms of reading, so I'm hoping that'll happen again this time. At the moment, I am in the middle of The Legacy by Elle Kennedy, so I'm going to finish that one off before I jumpstart any of this. But I will be vlogging the entire month of April because I want to do weekly vlogs for Magical Readathon and Realmathon, because that's what I did last year. But all that's to say, I'm really looking forward to April, and I think it's going to be a fabulous month, and I hope that it is the same for you as well. So do let me know in the comments down below what you're planning to read, whether or not you're joining these readathons, or just let me know what you're reading at the moment, whether you're loving it, hating it, all that kind of thing. Come and chat to me in the comments down below. I love talking to you guys, and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It's a super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!